The scent of expensive cologne mixed with fresh coffee filled the private dining room of the Sterling, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants. Marcus Wellington sat perfectly still in his chair, dark sunglasses covering his eyes, his fingers resting lightly on the white cane propped against the table. To anyone watching, he was simply a wealthy blind man waiting for his dinner companion. But beneath those designer shades, his sharp green eyes observed everything with perfect clarity. At 34, Marcus had built a technology empire worth $3 billion. His company, Wellington Enterprises, had revolutionized cloud computing and made him one of the youngest billionaires in New York. But with wealth came an endless parade of women who saw only dollar signs. His assistant, Patricia, had warned him that his latest strategy was extreme, perhaps even cruel. Marcus disagreed. He called it necessary. For the past 6 months, he'd been conducting an experiment. Every blind date arranged through Manhattan's elite matchmaking service believed they were meeting Marcus Wellington, successful businessman and recent accident victim who'd lost his sight in a supposed car crash. The story was elaborate and completely false. Marcus wanted to see who these women really were when they thought he was vulnerable, when they believed he needed them. So far, 11 women had failed his test spectacularly. The door opened, and Marcus heard the click of expensive heels on marble floor. He kept his expression neutral, his posture slightly uncertain, playing the role he'd perfected over months of practice. "Mr. Wellington?" The voice was sweet, almost syrupy. "I'm Veronica Chase. It's such a pleasure to finally meet you." Marcus extended his hand in the wrong direction, deliberately missing her approach. He heard her pause, then felt her fingers grasp his hand. Her grip was tentative, as if touching him might be contagious. "Please, call me Marcus. Thank you for agreeing to meet me." He gestured vaguely toward the chair across from him. "I hope you don't mind that I had them keep the lights low. I find it more comfortable." "Of course, whatever you need," Veronica said, though her tone carried a hint of impatience. She settled into her chair with a rustle of silk. Marcus had researched her thoroughly. 28 years old, fashion blogger, came from old money that had mostly evaporated, desperately seeking to marry back into wealth. The evening proceeded exactly as Marcus had predicted. Veronica ordered the most expensive items on the menu, her voice brightening only when discussing designer brands and luxury vacations. When Marcus deliberately knocked over his water glass, she gasped and jumped back to protect her dress rather than helping him. When he asked about her interests, every answer circled back to expensive hobbies and exclusive social circles. "You know, Marcus," she said over dessert, leaning forward in a way that would have been seductive if he'd actually been blind. "I think we could be really good together. You need someone who understands your world, someone who can navigate high society for you. I could be your eyes at all those important events." Marcus felt a familiar disappointment settle in his chest. Another one looking for a meal ticket. Someone who saw his disability as an opportunity to become indispensable. He made a non-committal sound and suggested they end the evening early, claiming fatigue. After Veronica left, without offering to help him find his car, Marcus removed his sunglasses and rubbed his temples. Patricia appeared from the private entrance where she'd been monitoring everything through hidden cameras. "That makes 12, she said quietly. Her weathered face creased with concern. "Marcus, maybe it's time to stop this. Not everyone is going to fail your test." "Then let's keep going until we find someone who passes," Marcus replied, his voice harder than he intended. "Schedule the next one," Patricia sighed. "There's actually a complication with the next candidate. She's not from our usual agency. A friend of mine insisted I meet her. She's a single mother, works as a nurse, just moved to the city. She's only doing this as a favor because her best friend signed her up without permission. Her name is Claire Morrison." "A nurse?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That's different. But the same rules apply. If she's really as genuine as your friend claims, she'll prove it." 3 days later, Marcus sat in the same private room at the Sterling, once again playing his part. He heard the door open, but this time there were 2 sets of footsteps, one confident, one smaller and uncertain. "Mr. Wellington? I'm so sorry. There's been a bit of a situation." The voice was warm and slightly breathless, touched with genuine embarrassment. "I'm Claire Morrison, and this is my daughter Sophie." My babysitter got sick at the last minute, and I couldn't reach anyone else. I completely understand if you want to reschedule. This is absolutely not appropriate for a first meeting. Marcus tilted his head, momentarily thrown off script. In all his months of testing, no one had ever brought a child. He heard the little girl whisper something, and Claire's gentle response. "Sweetie, let Mr. Wellington answer." "How old is Sophie?" Marcus asked, keeping his voice neutral. "I'm 7, a small voice piped up before Claire could answer. "And Mommy said I have to be very good and very quiet. I brought my coloring books." Despite himself, Marcus felt a smile tug at his lips. "Well, Sophie, I think we can make an exception tonight. Please, both of you, sit down." He heard Claire helping her daughter into a chair, the rustle of a backpack being opened, the whispered instructions to stay in her seat. Then Claire sat down across from him, and Marcus caught the faint scent of lavender soap. Simple, clean, nothing like the designer perfumes he'd been subjected to lately. "I really do apologize," Claire said. "This is mortifying. My friend Rachel set up this whole thing without telling me, and then everything went wrong today. We can just have a quick drink and call it a night." "Tell me about your day," Marcus said, genuinely curious now. "What made everything go wrong?" Claire laughed, a real laugh without artifice. "Well, let's see. I worked a double shift because 2 nurses called in sick. Then Sophie's school called because she wasn't feeling well, but by the time I got there she was fine. Apparently she just missed me. Then my car wouldn't start, so we took the subway. And Sophie dropped her favorite toy between the platform and the train, and then the babysitter cancellation. It's been one of those days where you either laugh or cry. And I'm choosing to laugh." Marcus found himself genuinely smiling. "And yet you still came?" "Well, Rachel would never let me hear the end of it if I didn't. Plus, she showed me your picture, and I figured if I was going to be completely humiliated, it might as well be in front of someone handsome." She paused. "Sorry, that was inappropriate. I'm out of practice with this whole dating thing." Throughout dinner, Marcus noticed things he'd never observed in his previous 12 dates. Claire cut her daughter's food without being asked. She ordered modestly, chose the pasta special over the expensive seafood. When Marcus deliberately fumbled with his napkin, she picked it up and handed it to him naturally, without fanfare or excessive sympathy. She talked about her work with genuine passion, describing the elderly patients she cared for with warmth and humor. Sophie remained remarkably well-behaved, coloring quietly and occasionally showing her mother pictures. But when dessert arrived, Marcus heard the little girl's stomach growl loudly. "Mommy, I'm still hungry," Sophie whispered. Not quite quietly enough. There was a long pause, and Marcus sensed Claire's discomfort. He realized she'd probably ordered the least expensive item so she could afford to pay for her daughter's meal if needed. His chest tightened with an unfamiliar feeling. "Sophie," he said gently, "I heard they have excellent chocolate cake here. Would you like to try it? I'm not supposed to have too much sugar, and I'd hate for it to go to waste." "Really?" The little girl's voice lit up with excitement. "Really? In fact, order 2 slices. I insist." As the evening continued, something shifted inside Marcus. Claire asked him about his work with genuine interest, listened to his answers without calculating their net worth. When he mentioned missing certain sights since his accident, she described the view from the restaurant windows with such vivid detail that he could almost forget he could actually see it himself. "The city lights are reflecting off the buildings across the street," Claire said softly. "Everything's gold and silver, like someone spilled a jewelry box across the skyline. And there's a street musician down below. We could barely hear him over the traffic when we came in, but he's playing violin. Sophie loves violin. I want to play violin someday," Sophie added sleepily, her head drooping onto her mother's arm. When dinner ended, Claire insisted on splitting the bill despite Marcus's protests. "I may not have much, but I pay my own way," she said firmly. "That's how my parents raised me." As they prepared to leave, Marcus stood, deliberately moving uncertainly. Claire immediately moved to his side, but not to grab his arm or take control. Instead, she asked quietly, "Would you like me to walk with you to your car? No pressure, I just want to make sure you get there safely." Something in her voice, The complete absence of manipulation or calculation made Marcus's carefully constructed test feel suddenly cruel. For the first time in 6 months, he felt ashamed of his deception. "That would be nice," he said softly. "Thank you, Claire." As they walked through the restaurant, Sophie's small hand slipped into his free one, trusting and innocent. Marcus felt his heart constrict. At the door, he made his decision. "Claire," he said, stopping before they exited, "would you be willing to see me again? Maybe somewhere less formal? A park, perhaps, where Sophie could play?" He heard her sharp intake of breath, felt her surprise. You'd want to see us again, even after this chaotic disaster of an evening?" "Especially after this chaotic disaster of an evening," Marcus said, and meant every word. What he didn't know was that his simple act of kindness, offering cake to a hungry child, treating them both with genuine respect, was about to save his life in ways he never imagined. Because 3 blocks away, the real Marcus Wellington's driver was waiting with the car, and a man with a gun was watching from the shadows, waiting for the blind billionaire to emerge alone and vulnerable. But tonight, Marcus wouldn't be alone, and that would make all the difference. The following Saturday, Marcus found himself in Central Park without his sunglasses for the first time in 6 months of dates, though he still carried the white cane as part of his elaborate performance. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and roasted chestnuts from nearby vendors. He'd chosen this location carefully, public enough to seem casual, but with quiet corners where they could talk. Claire arrived exactly on time, Sophie skipping ahead of her in a bright yellow jacket that made Marcus's chest tighten with unexpected tenderness. The little girl ran straight to him, her small hand reaching for his. "Mr. Wellington, Mommy says we're going to feed the ducks." Sophie's excitement was infectious, her voice ringing clear in the morning air. "Please, call me Marcus," he said, crouching down to her level, careful to keep his eyes slightly unfocused behind the tinted glasses he'd switched to for outdoor wear. "And yes, I brought bread specially for the ducks." Claire approached more cautiously, dressed simply in jeans and a sweater that had seen better days. Marcus noticed the careful patches on Sophie's jacket sleeves, the way Claire's shoes were worn, but meticulously clean. Everything about them spoke of dignity maintained, despite financial struggle. "Thank you for this," Claire said softly. "Sophie hasn't stopped talking about you all week. I hope that doesn't make things weird." "Not at all." Marcus stood, offering his arm. "Shall we?" As they walked toward the lake, Claire described everything around them. The joggers passing by, the street artist painting portraits, the way the sunlight filtered through the bronze and gold leaves. Her descriptions were so vivid that Marcus found himself closing his eyes for real, experiencing the park through her words rather than his sight. Sophie ran ahead, staying within Claire's watchful eye, chasing pigeons and collecting interesting leaves. Marcus observed the way Claire tracked her daughter's movements with practiced ease, never hovering but always aware. "Tell me about Sophie's father," Marcus said quietly, surprising himself with the question. "If that's not too personal." Claire was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried old pain tempered by time. "Daniel was my high school sweetheart. We married young, too young probably. When I got pregnant, he seemed happy at first. But after Sophie was born, everything changed. He couldn't handle the responsibility, the crying, the bills. One morning I woke up and he was just gone. Left a note saying he wasn't ready to be a father. That was 7 years ago. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, and meant it. "Don't be. We're better off, honestly. Sophie doesn't remember him, and I've learned I'm stronger than I thought." Claire paused. "What about you? Patricia mentioned you were in an accident, but she didn't give details." Marcus felt the familiar guilt of his deception rise up. He'd prepared this story carefully, rehearsed it dozens of times. Car accident 6 months ago. Traumatic optic neuropathy. The doctors say the damage might be permanent. The lies tasted bitter on his tongue, especially with Claire's honest pain still hanging in the air between them. They reached the lake, and Sophie immediately began tossing bread to the eager ducks. Claire guided Marcus to a bench, her touch gentle on his elbow. They sat in comfortable silence, watching, or in Marcus's case, pretending not to watch. Sophie's delight. "Can I ask you something?" Claire said after a while. That first night, at the restaurant. You seemed surprised when I brought Sophie. Why? Marcus chose his words carefully. Most people wouldn't have been so honest about the situation. They would have hidden it or made excuses. I don't believe in starting anything with lies, Claire said simply. Even if it means embarrassing myself. The irony of her statement struck Marcus like a physical blow. Here he was, building an entire relationship on deception, while she valued honesty above all else. Before he could respond, Sophie came running back, breathless with excitement. Marcus, there's a man over there doing magic tricks. Can we go see? Please? Claire started to protest. Marcus could hear the worry in her voice about imposing, but he stood immediately. I'd love to. Lead the way, Sophie. The little girl took his hand with complete trust, and they made their way to where a street magician was performing. Marcus watched through his tinted glasses as the man made coins disappear and reappear, pulled scarves from impossible places. But what captivated him more was Sophie's wonder, her gasps of delight, the way she unconsciously pressed closer to him when something particularly amazing happened. When the performance ended, Claire tried to move on, but Marcus noticed Sophie staring longingly at the magician's tip hat. He pulled out his wallet, deliberately fumbling with it. Claire immediately moved to help, and in that moment, Marcus saw her notice the thick stack of bills inside. Her expression didn't change. No calculation. No sudden interest. She simply helped him extract a $20 bill and guided his hand toward the hat. That's too much, she whispered. A 5 would be generous. Sophie's smile is worth $20, Marcus replied quietly, and watched Claire's eyes fill with unexpected tears. As they walked away, Sophie between them holding both their hands, Marcus felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't part of the test anymore. Somewhere between Claire's honest descriptions of the park and her daughter's unguarded trust, he'd stopped experimenting and started genuinely caring. They found a food cart selling hot dogs, and Marcus insisted on buying lunch. Claire tried to refuse, but Sophie's hopeful expression won the argument. They sat on the grass, and Marcus found himself laughing, really laughing, as Sophie told elaborate stories about her school friends and her dreams of becoming a veterinarian. She's obsessed with animals, Claire explained, wiping mustard from her daughter's chin. We can't afford a pet, but she's memorized entire books about dogs and cats. Tell Marcus about the shelter, sweetheart. Sophie's face lit up. There's this place called Happy Paws, and they let kids come read to the cats. The cats get lonely, so reading makes them happy. Mommy says when I'm 8, I can volunteer there. That sounds wonderful, Marcus said, genuinely touched. An idea formed in his mind, something he could do to help without revealing his true identity. I know someone who works with animal charities. Maybe I could arrange a special visit for you sometime soon. The joy on Sophie's face was worth any amount of money, but it was the look Claire gave him, surprise mixed with something deeper, something tender, that made his heart race. The afternoon drifted by in a haze of unexpected happiness. They visited the playground, where Claire described Sophie's acrobatics on the monkey bars with such detail that Marcus could almost forget he could see perfectly. They walked through the ramble, the wooded section of the park, where Sophie collected leaves and Claire pointed out different bird species by their calls. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, they made their way back toward the park entrance. Sophie had grown tired, and without asking, Marcus lifted her onto his shoulders. A risky move for someone supposedly blind, but one he executed by claiming he'd done it many times with his younger cousins before the accident. You're good with her, Claire said softly as they walked, her voice filled with wonder. Most men would be running for the hills by now. Most men are idiots, Marcus replied, then added carefully, I like spending time with both of you. It feels real. Does that make sense? It does. Claire's hand found his arm, her touch sending electricity through him. Marcus, I need to be honest with you. I'm not looking for someone to rescue us. Sophie and I, we're okay on our own. I work hard. We have enough to get by. If we're going to see each other again, it has to be because you want to, not because you feel sorry for us. Marcus stopped walking. Sophie still perched on his shoulders and turned toward Claire. Even through his tinted glasses, he could see the fierce pride in her eyes, the determination that had carried her through single motherhood and financial struggle. She wasn't asking for his money or his pity. She was asking for his genuine affection and offering hers in return. "I don't feel sorry for you," he said quietly. "I feel lucky to have met you." The smile that broke across Claire's face was like sunrise, brilliant and warm. For a moment, Marcus almost told her the truth, almost ripped off the glasses and confessed everything. But fear held him back. What if she was angry? What if she felt manipulated? What if this fragile, beautiful thing between them shattered before it truly began? They exchanged phone numbers at the subway entrance, Sophie already half asleep against her mother's shoulder. As Marcus watched them descend the stairs, watched, not pretended to sense, he felt Patricia's presence beside him. His assistant had been shadowing them all day, as always. "You're in trouble," Patricia said quietly. "You're falling for her." "I know," Marcus admitted. "What do I do?" "Tell her the truth before this goes any further. She deserves that." Marcus nodded slowly, but even as he agreed, he knew he wouldn't. Not yet. He'd tell her soon, he promised himself. Just a few more dates. Just enough time to be sure she felt the same way. Just enough time to make the truth hurt a little less when it finally came out. What Marcus didn't know was that his driver, Thomas, who'd been with him for 8 years, had recently been approached by Vincent Caruso, a rival businessman who'd lost millions when Wellington Enterprises had outbid him on a crucial government contract. Vincent had offered Thomas $200,000 to arrange an accident, preferably one where Marcus Wellington's blindness would make it look like a tragic mistake rather than murder. And Thomas, drowning in gambling debts and desperate for a way out, had agreed. The plan was simple. Wait until Marcus was alone and vulnerable, then stage a mugging gone wrong in a dark corner of the city. But today, Marcus hadn't been alone, and Thomas had been forced to watch and wait, his conscience warring with his desperation, as the billionaire played with a little girl in the park. As Marcus headed home that evening, Thomas sat in the driver's seat, hands trembling on the wheel. He'd been planning to act tonight, but something about seeing his boss with that child, the way Marcus had smiled, really smiled, for the first time in months, had shaken Thomas's resolve. Maybe he could find another way out of his debts. Maybe he didn't have to become a murderer. But Vincent Caruso wasn't a patient man, and Thomas knew the window for action was closing fast. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of carefully orchestrated moments and growing deception. Marcus saw Claire and Sophie twice more. Once at a children's museum where Sophie's enthusiasm for the dinosaur exhibit made him laugh until his sides ached, and again at a small Italian restaurant where the owner's grandmother had insisted on teaching Sophie how to make pasta from scratch. Each meeting deepened the connection between them, and each meeting made Marcus's lie feel heavier. He'd catch himself forgetting to play blind, moving too confidently, or tracking Sophie's movements too accurately. Claire never seemed to notice, too focused on describing the world around him, too trusting to question his performance. On a cold November evening, Marcus sat in his penthouse office, staring at the city lights below. Patricia entered without knocking, her expression troubled. "We have a problem," she said, closing the door behind her. "Thomas came to me today. He's been acting strange lately, jumpy, nervous. I think something's wrong." Marcus turned from the window. "What did he say?" "He asked about your schedule, specifically when you'd be alone. When I pressed him, he got defensive and left quickly." Patricia's weathered face creased with worry. "Marcus, I think we should involve security. Something doesn't feel right." Before Marcus could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from Claire. "Sophie won't stop asking when she'll see you again. Any chance you're free this weekend?" "No pressure. I know you're busy." Marcus smiled despite Patricia's concerns. "Clear my Saturday. I'm taking them to the animal shelter. Happy Paws. I've already arranged everything with the director." "Marcus, did you hear what I said about Thomas?" "I heard you. Look into it quietly, but don't cancel anything with Claire." He paused, his expression softening. "Patricia, I think I'm going to tell her the truth this weekend, after the shelter visit." "She deserves to know." Patricia's expression shifted from concern to something gentler. "You love her." It wasn't a question, but Marcus answered anyway. "Yes, and Sophie too. I never expected this, never planned for it. But somewhere between the park and the pasta making, and her descriptions of sunsets I can actually see, I fell completely in love with both of them. Then tell her soon, Patricia urged, before she finds out some other way. That kind of deception, even with good intentions, could destroy everything. Marcus nodded, but a cold feeling settled in his stomach. What if Claire couldn't forgive him? What if she saw his test as cruel manipulation rather than protective caution? What if he lost them both before he really had them? Saturday morning arrived cold and bright. Marcus waited outside Happy Paw's animal shelter, his usual disguise in place, tinted glasses, white cane, carefully practiced uncertain movements. When Claire and Sophie arrived, the little girl was practically vibrating with excitement. Marcus, is this really happening? Are we really going inside? Sophie bounced on her toes, her red winter coat making her look like a happy cardinal. We really are, Marcus confirmed, letting the shelter director, Helen, a kind woman in her 50s, who'd agreed to help with his surprise, guide them inside. The shelter was warm and filled with the sounds of barking dogs and meowing cats. Sophie's eyes went wide as saucers, taking in the rows of kennels and the play area where several dogs romped together. Welcome to Happy Paws, Helen said warmly. Sophie, I understand you love animals? More than anything in the whole world, Sophie exclaimed, then remembered her manners. Except Mommy and Marcus, Claire laughed, her hand finding Marcus's arm naturally. He could feel her happiness radiating through that simple touch, and his guilt deepened. Tonight, he promised himself. After this perfect day, I'll tell her everything tonight. Helen led them through the facility, letting Sophie pet dogs and hold cats. Marcus watched through his tinted glasses as the little girl's face transformed with pure joy. But it was when they entered the cat reading room that something unexpected happened. This is where children come to read to the cats, Helen explained. It helps socialize the shy ones, gets them used to gentle voices and calm energy. Sophie, would you like to try? Sophie nodded eagerly, and Helen brought out an orange tabby cat with white paws. This is Marmalade. He's been here for 6 months, and he's very shy. Maybe you could read to him? Sophie settled on a cushion, the cat curling cautiously in her lap. She pulled out a picture book she'd brought and began to read in her sweet, careful voice. But something about the combination, the little girl, the cat, the soft afternoon light streaming through the windows, made something crack open in Marcus's chest. He'd spent 6 months testing women, looking for authenticity, guarding his heart with elaborate deceptions. But here was this child, this beautiful, innocent child, who gave her trust so freely, who saw the world with such wonder despite her father's abandonment, despite the financial struggles her mother worked so hard to hide. And here was Claire, describing Marmalade's contented purring to him in soft detail, her head close to his, her warmth seeping into his bones. Marcus? Claire's voice broke through his thoughts. Are you okay? You seem far away. I'm fine, he said, his voice rougher than intended. This is perfect. Thank you for letting me be part of this. After the reading session, Helen pulled Marcus aside while Sophie and Claire visited the puppies. Mr. Wellington, there's something you should know. Marmalade has been difficult to place because he needs a quiet home with patient owners. But watching Sophie with him, I've never seen him so calm. If you were interested in adopting him for your family, we're not his family, Marcus interrupted automatically, then stopped. Weren't they? Hadn't they become exactly that over the past few weeks? I mean, we're not there yet, but maybe... Let me talk to Claire. When he returned to them, Sophie was crying softly, pressing her face against her mother's shoulder. Claire looked up at Marcus with helpless sadness. She doesn't want to leave Marmalade, Claire explained quietly. I've tried to explain we can't have a cat in our apartment, but Marcus made his decision in an instant. Helen, we'll take him. All the supplies too. Food, litter, toys, whatever he needs. Marcus, no, Claire protested, standing quickly. That's too much. I can't let you. Consider it Sophie's early Christmas present, Marcus said firmly. And before you argue, consider how happy she'll be. Some things are worth more than money, Claire. You taught me that. Claire's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment Marcus thought she might refuse. But then Sophie threw her arms around his waist, sobbing with joy, and Claire's resistance crumbled. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea what this means to her, to us." As they completed the adoption paperwork and loaded Marmalade's carrier into Claire's friend's borrowed car, Marcus felt simultaneously elated and terrified. He'd just made himself part of their daily lives in a concrete way. There would be no easy exit now, no way to gracefully disappear if Claire couldn't forgive his deception. "Can Marcus come to our apartment?" Sophie asked as they prepared to leave. To help Marmalade get settled, Claire hesitated, and Marcus could read her uncertainty. Their apartment was undoubtedly small and modest, nothing like the luxury she probably imagined he was used to, but the invitation in her eyes was real, and he couldn't refuse. "I'd love to," he said. The drive across town took 40 minutes. Marcus sat in the back with Sophie, who chattered non-stop about Marmalade's orange fur and white paws. When they finally arrived, Marcus saw the building was in a struggling neighborhood. Not dangerous, but clearly economically depressed. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of a walk-up with no elevator. "Let me help you," Marcus said, reaching for Marmalade's carrier. Then he realized his mistake. A blind man wouldn't confidently carry a cat carrier up unfamiliar stairs. He fumbled deliberately, nearly dropping it, and Claire quickly took it from him. "I've got it," she said gently. "Sophie, take Marcus's hand and guide him carefully. Watch out for the broken step on the 2nd landing." They climbed slowly, and Marcus's heart pounded with more than physical exertion. Each step took him deeper into Claire's real life, past the careful facade she maintained on their dates. He could hear the thin walls, smell cooking from various apartments, see the peeling paint and worn carpet. Claire's apartment was tiny, one bedroom that she clearly gave to Sophie, with a pull-out couch in the living room for herself. But it was spotlessly clean and filled with small touches of warmth. Sophie's crayon drawings taped to the walls, library books stacked neatly on a shelf, a jam jar filled with wildflowers on the small kitchen table. "It's not much," Claire said quietly, her pride and shame mingling in her voice. "But it's ours. It's perfect," Marcus said, and meant it. This small, cramped space held more love than his massive penthouse ever had. They spent the next hour setting up Marmalade's supplies and helping him explore his new home. The cat immediately claimed Sophie's bed as his domain, and the little girl was overjoyed. As evening approached, Claire made spaghetti with store-brand sauce, apologizing for the humble meal. "This is the best dinner I've had in months," Marcus said honestly, sitting at the tiny table with Sophie chattering beside him and Claire moving in the even tinier kitchen. After dinner, Sophie insisted on showing Marcus her room. Her books, her toy collection pieced together from thrift stores and birthday gifts, her dreams drawn in crayon on construction paper. One picture caught his eye, a family portrait showing a woman, a little girl, a cat, and a man with dark glasses holding a white cane. "That's us," Sophie said simply. "Our family." Marcus's throat tightened. He excused himself to use the bathroom, and once alone, he pulled out his phone. A text from Patricia. "Thomas quit this morning. Took off without explanation. I'm having him investigated, but I thought you should know. Be careful." A second text followed. "Also, there's a reporter sniffing around, asking questions about your accident. The story might break soon. Tell Claire now." Marcus stared at his reflection in the small, cracked mirror. He was standing in a bathroom that barely had room to turn around, in an apartment that could fit in his penthouse's living room, about to break the heart of the most genuine woman he'd ever met. He returned to find Claire putting Sophie to bed. Through the thin wall, he could hear the little girl's sleepy voice. "Mommy, is Marcus going to be my daddy? Because I'd really like that." Claire's response was soft, meant only for her daughter. "I don't know, sweetheart. But wouldn't it be wonderful?" Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the gut. He waited until Claire emerged, her expression soft with maternal love. They sat together on the pull-out couch, close but not touching. "Claire, I need to tell you something," Marcus began, his heart hammering. "Wait," she interrupted, taking his hand. "Let me go first. Marcus, these past few weeks have been... I never expected to feel this way again. After Daniel left, I built walls. I told myself Sophie and I were fine alone. that we didn't need anyone. But you—" She paused, her voice breaking slightly. "You've been so kind, so patient. The way you are with Sophie, the way you listen to me. Really listen. I'm falling in love with you, Marcus, and that terrifies me because I have Sophie to think about, and I can't afford to make mistakes, but I also can't keep pretending I don't feel this way." Her confession hung in the air between them, beautiful and terrible. This was the moment. Marcus needed to tell her everything. About the test, the deception, his perfect vision and immense wealth. But as he opened his mouth to speak, his phone buzzed with an urgent text from Patricia. "Thomas is in the hospital. Attempted suicide. Left a note confessing someone paid him to kill you. Police are involved. You need to come now." Marcus's blood ran cold. Someone had tried to have him killed, and his driver, a man he'd trusted for 8 years, had been desperate enough to consider it. Suddenly, his elaborate blind test seemed not cautious, but absolutely necessary. There were people in his world who wanted him dead. People who would exploit any weakness. And now Claire and Sophie, with their trust and love and vulnerability, had become potential weaknesses. Potential targets. "Marcus, what's wrong?" You went completely pale. Claire's hand was on his face, her thumb brushing his cheek with such tenderness it nearly broke him. "I have to go," he said abruptly, standing. "Emergency. I'm sorry, Is everything okay? Can I help?" "No, yes, I mean, it's complicated." Marcus grabbed his coat and cane, his carefully maintained performance falling apart. "I'll call you tomorrow. I promise I'll explain everything." He was out the door and down the stairs before Claire could respond, leaving her standing in her small apartment, confused and hurt, with no idea that her blind date with a billionaire had just become exponentially more dangerous. The hospital's sterile corridors felt endless as Marcus rushed through them, his disguise abandoned. Patricia met him outside the intensive care unit, her face grave. "Thomas is stable but sedated." The police found his suicide note. It detailed everything. Vincent Caruso offered him $200,000 to stage your death as a mugging. Thomas was supposed to act 3 weeks ago, but he couldn't go through with it. Patricia's voice dropped. "Marcus, he mentioned seeing you with a woman and child in the park. He said watching you smile for the first time in years made him realize he couldn't become a murderer." Marcus leaned against the wall. "Claire and Sophie saved my life without knowing it. The police are investigating Caruso. This will be all over the news by morning. The attempted murder, your company, everything." Patricia paused meaningfully, including the fact that you're not actually blind. Marcus closed his eyes. "She's going to find out from the news." "Then tell her first. Now. Tonight." Marcus checked his watch. Nearly midnight. He called Claire. She answered after 6 rings, her voice thick with sleep. "Marcus? What's happening?" "Claire, I need to see you. Right now. There's something I have to tell you, and it can't wait." His voice cracked. "Please." A long pause. "Okay, come over." The drive took 30 agonizing minutes. When Claire opened the door, wrapped in an old bathrobe, Marcus took a deep breath and removed his tinted glasses, meeting her eyes directly for the first time. "I can see you, Claire. Perfectly. I've always been able to see you." Marcus watched shock cross her face. "There was no car accident. I've been pretending to be blind for 6 months as a test. I wanted to see who would treat me with genuine kindness when they thought I was vulnerable." The silence felt like eternity. Claire's face went white, her hands trembling. "You've been lying to me," she whispered. "This entire time. Sophie drew a picture of you with your cane. She told everyone at school about her friend Marcus who can't see, and it was all a lie?" "No," Marcus said desperately. "My feelings for you are completely real. I was going to tell you tonight before the emergency." "What emergency? Or is that another lie?" Marcus told her everything, about Thomas, Caruso, the murder plot. "You and Sophie literally saved my life that day in the park. If I'd been alone, Thomas might have gone through with it." Claire stood abruptly, pacing. "So what am I supposed to be? Grateful? Happy that we accidentally saved a billionaire who was too paranoid to be honest? That's not fair." You don't understand what it's like, the constant manipulation, people seeing dollar signs instead of a person. By lying to a single mother who can barely make rent? Claire's voice rose, then dropped, remembering Sophie. By making her daughter fall in love with you? Sophie has abandonment issues because of her father. She finally started to trust again. And now I have to tell her you've been lying from day one. The accusation hit Marcus hard. He hadn't considered Sophie's perspective, hadn't thought about how his deception would affect a child already abandoned once. "I'm sorry," he said, voice breaking. "I fell in love with you. That wasn't part of any plan." "Love?" Claire laughed bitterly. "Love is honest. Love is vulnerable. Love doesn't play games." Tears streamed down her face. "I told you tonight I was falling in love with you. I trusted you with my heart, with my daughter's heart, and you were just conducting an experiment?" "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Marcus? Make me understand how you could look me in the eye. Because yes, you could see me all along. And lie every single day." Marcus had no answer. He'd continued the deception long after he knew Claire was genuine. Long after he'd fallen in love. "I was going to tell you," he said weakly. "After the shelter. How generous of you." Claire's voice was flat. "And if there'd been no emergency, would you have told me next week? Next month?" "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "I don't know, and that makes it worse." Claire wrapped her arms around herself. "I think you should leave. Claire, please. Let me fix this." "How? How do I trust anything you say now? Every conversation we had, every moment, was it all part of the performance?" "No," Marcus said fiercely. "The performance was pretending to be blind. Everything else, the way I felt when you described sunsets, how Sophie's laugh made me happy, that was all real. You made me want to be better." Pretty words from a man who's proven he's very good at deception. Claire moved to the door, opening it. "Please go. I need to think." Marcus walked slowly to the door. At the threshold, he turned. "I love you. Both of you. That's the truest thing I've ever said." Claire's expression softened briefly, then hardened. "The man I fell in love with doesn't exist, Marcus. He was blind and kind and real. You're just a billionaire who thinks he can buy his way out of consequences." The door closed quietly. Marcus stood in the hallway, more lost than ever. He'd had everything he wanted, and his own cowardice had destroyed it. Patricia was waiting in the car. One look at his face told her everything. "She hates me," Marcus said. "And she has every right to. What are you going to do? Fix this. Whatever it takes." The next morning, the story broke. Billionaire Marcus Wellington targeted in murder-for-hire plot. The articles detailed Thomas's confession, Caruso's arrest, and Marcus's months-long deception about being blind. Claire didn't answer his calls or texts. After 3 days, Marcus made decisions. He set up a trust fund for Sophie. Enough for college, medical expenses, whatever she needed. Anonymous, no strings attached. Then he stepped back from his company, placing Patricia in temporary control, and took real leave. Marcus started volunteering at Happy Paws, reading to shy cats, cleaning kennels, doing unglamorous work. On the third afternoon, Sophie walked in with her school reading group. She froze when she saw him, her face crumpling. She ran from the room and Marcus heard her broken sobs. "That's Marcus, but Mommy says he's been lying." The sound destroyed him. He'd broken this beautiful child's heart. Helen appeared beside him. "That's Claire Morrison's daughter, isn't it? Then you'd better figure out how to make it right. That little girl loved you. So stop wallowing and start showing them the man you actually want to be." Marcus called his lawyer. "I need a complete financial disclosure, all my assets, and arrange a meeting with Claire Morrison. Tell her I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just 60 minutes to explain, face to face. No more lies. If she still wants me gone after, I'll never contact her again." 2 days later, his lawyer called. Ms. Morrison agreed. Saturday, 2 o'clock, the park. No bodyguards, no lawyers. Just you, being honest. Her words. Saturday arrived cold and gray. Marcus clutched a folder with his disclosure and a letter. When Claire appeared, she looked tired, but stronger. "Thank you for coming," Marcus began. "I'm here for 60 minutes, Claire said, checking her watch. "Talk." Marcus told her everything, the 12 failed dates, his loneliness, the moment Sophie's hunger cracked his cynicism. He told her about falling in love, his fear, his cowardice. I can't defend what I did. It hurt you and Sophie, and I'll regret that forever. But every feeling, every moment of happiness, that was real. The only lie was about my eyes. Claire was quiet, gazing at the lake. You know what the worst part is? You saw me struggle and still thought I might be after your money. What does that say about what you thought of me? I was wrong. You proved that in 5 minutes, and I should have told you then. My fear wasn't about you. It was about my own damage. Marcus, I've spent 2 weeks thinking. Part of me wants to forgive you, but I have Sophie. She asked me yesterday if all adults lie like her daddy and Marcus. How do I answer that? Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. All I can tell you is that I'm going to spend my life trying to be the man Sophie drew in that picture. He handed her the folder. Every detail of my finances. No more secrets. There's a letter explaining Sophie's trust fund. It's hers regardless of whether you speak to me again. No strings. Claire opened it, eyes widening. Marcus, this is too much. It's not enough. Nothing could be. But please let me do this one thing right. Rain began falling. Claire closed the folder. I need more time. I can't just forgive because you made a grand gesture. Trust has to be rebuilt slowly, if it can be. I understand. Take all the time you need. Claire stood to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I believe you loved us, but love without trust is just a beautiful lie, Marcus, and I've had enough of those. 3 months passed. Marcus continued volunteering, donated anonymously to Sophie's school, focused on genuine charitable work. He dated no one. On a bright February afternoon, Helen called him to the front desk. Someone here to see you. Sophie stood there holding Marmalade's carrier. Behind her was Claire. Marmalade needs his checkup, Sophie said formally. And Mommy says you know about cats now. Marcus knelt to Sophie's level. I do. Would you like me to help? Sophie nodded, then burst out. Are you still lying? Because I miss you, but I should only trust people who tell the truth. I'm not lying anymore, Marcus said, voice thick. And Sophie, I'm so sorry. You deserved the truth from the beginning. Sophie studied him with brutal 7-year-old honesty. Then she handed him the carrier. Okay, let's go. As they walked, Claire touched his arm. She's been asking about you every day. She told me everyone makes mistakes, and if Marmalade could forgive her for stepping on his tail, maybe she could forgive you. And you? Marcus asked quietly. Claire smiled, small but genuine. I'm working on it. Patricia told me what you've been doing, how you've changed, so I'm here cautiously. After Marmalade's checkup, they walked to the garden. Sophie played in the sunshine while Marcus and Claire talked. I learned something, Marcus said. Love isn't about tests or control. It's about trust, even when trust is scary. Can you live those words? Claire asked. I'm trying, every day. Marcus turned to her. Claire, I know I don't deserve another chance, but if you're willing, I'd like to try. Slowly. Honestly. Just me. Imperfect and scared sometimes, but trying to be worthy of you and Sophie. Claire watched her daughter. I need consistent honesty, even when uncomfortable. I need you to keep being the man who volunteers at shelters, and rebuilding trust with Sophie is more important than with me. I can do that. I will. Then let's start small. Dinner next week. And Marcus? Claire's expression turned serious. If you ever lie again for any reason, we're done. No second chances. I understand. I won't. I promise, Claire. Sophie ran over, Marmalade purring. Can Marcus come have pizza with us? Claire looked at Marcus, a question in her eyes. He nodded, hope blooming. Yes, sweetheart. Marcus can come. As they walked out together, Sophie between them, Marcus felt something settle in his soul. This wasn't triumphant, but it was real. Messier, slower, more uncertain, but infinitely more genuine. 6 months later, Marcus stood in Claire's tiny apartment that now felt like home. Sophie slept with Marmalade at her feet. Claire made tea, and Marcus wrapped his arms around her. Caruso's trial is next month. They want me to testify. Will you? Claire asked, turning in his arms. Yes, because truth matters. You taught me that. Claire smiled and kissed him softly. You know, I never asked. That first night, did you really not see how beautiful I was? I saw everything, Marcus admitted. The worn coat, the patched shoes. I saw it all and fell in love, but I was too scared to show you I could see. And now? Now I'm still scared sometimes. Scared I'll mess up. But I'm not hiding anymore. That's all I ever wanted, Claire said. Just you, being real. They stood together, wrapped in love that only comes from surviving mistakes and choosing forgiveness. Marcus had started looking for authenticity while hiding behind lies. In the end, Claire, who could barely make rent but was rich in integrity, taught him that real love requires courage. The courage to be vulnerable, honest, to let someone see you completely and trust they'll choose you anyway. In Sophie's room hung a new crayon drawing. A woman, a girl, a cat, and a man. But this time with no dark glasses, no cane. Just open arms and a smile that reached his eyes that could finally see what truly mattered.